What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, and I am super excited to finally be able to bring you an updated ZARC profile using all of the brand new cards from Age of Overlord. And trust me, they got some really cool cards. It's now even easier to summon out the almighty ZARC, and I'll show you exactly how you do that with a combo at the end of the video. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. I'm now just going to dive headfirst into the profile, show you what we've got, explain why we've got it, and then show you that all-important combo at the end. So, we start off with the brand new Supreme King Gate Magician. This card is nuts. So, its scale effect. Supreme King ZARC you control cannot be banished by your opponent's card effects. During your main phase, you can destroy this card, and if you do, place one Supreme King Gate Pendulum monster from your hand or deck into the Pendulum Zone except itself. You can only use this effect once per turn. Its monster effect is if you have a Supreme King card, Supreme King Gate card specifically in your Pendulum Zone except himself, you get to send a Pendulum Dragon, XYZ, Synchro Dragon or Fusion Dragon monster from your hand or extra deck to the graveyard, and if you do, special summon this card from the hand. If this card is special summoned, you get to add one card that mentions Supreme King ZARC from the deck to the hand except a spellcaster monster. You can only use each effect once per turn. This card is insane. It searches you out the trap to get to ZARC. It special summons itself for pretty much free, and it sets out your scale. What more could you want from this card? We're also playing 3 of the OG Supreme King Darkworm. Now, alongside with Gate 0 and Infinity, he now has a backup brother in the form of Supreme King Dragon Lightworm. This card is just as cool as its counterpart. So the scale effect is if a monster or monsters is special summoned and you control ZARC and another Pendulum monster, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card. Then you can make the level and attribute of either this card or one Pendulum monster you control become the same and a level and attribute as the other. You can only use this effect once per turn. If this card is normal or special, you can add one face-up Supreme King Dragon or Supreme King Gate Pendulum monster from your extra deck to the hand. Then immediately after this effect resolves, you can Synchro or XYZ one Supreme King Dragon monster. If a face-up Pendulum monster or monsters you control is destroyed by a battle or card effect, while this card is face-up in your extra deck, you get to add it back to the hand. It recycles so much, and it sets out an insanely powerful Synchro board clear in the form of Dragon Clearwing. Very nice! Then, of course, because these cards are so cool, we are playing triple Rota in the form of Odd Eyes Revolution. So pay a little bit of life points, search your deck for a dragon. Nice! Then, if you weren't done with enough searching, triple Performer Power Skullcrab Joker. This is the only normal summon of the deck that you want to normal summon to gain an effect from. If you really wanted to, you could cut the Performer Power Skullcrab Joker and go for the Adventure Engine, but no, we want to keep this all Pendulum based. We've then got triple Chronograph Sorcerer and one Time Gazer, and that's purely because the combo that I'm going to show you at the end is technically access to Darkworm and then any monster that can either be your normal summon, or if you open up the Darkworm, it can also be any extender. So I would like to play the Curtain Raiser, but Curtain Raiser clashes with the Supreme Dragon, which is why I've gone with the Chronograph Sorcerer instead. Then, of course, we've got one Astrograph Sorcerer, one Supreme King Gate 0. You can play 2 if you wanted to go more aggressive. Honestly, I think 1 is more than enough. Then, of course, we've got the one Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum. Now, this is our Pendulum Dragon, and we're going to send it from the deck to the graveyard rather than the extra deck. And then I am playing a very small Pendulum Magician engine of 2 Harmonizer, 1 Purple, and 1 Celestial. You don't have to play this engine at all. You can cut it for more hand traps, more interactions. Heck, you can even cut it up for more Pendulum monsters in the form of stuff like Double Iris if you wanted to. You can go more Pendulum Magicians, you can go more Performer Power, entirely up to you. For the spells, another brand new card which is bonkers good is during the main phase, add a Supreme King Dragon or a Supreme King Gate Pendulum monster from your deck to your hand, or if you control ZARC, you get to special summon it. You can only activate 1 Wings of Light per turn. Now, this is just insane because it just searches you out your Lightworm or your Darkworm, which is why it's so important to have that extender, because if you don't get to one of your 4 Foolish Burials in the form of triple Dragon Shrine and 1 Foolish Burial, you can actually just hard search your Darkworm. You would need to normal summon it, but then as long as you've got an extender in the form of the Chronograph Sorcerer, you're still good to make your entire combo work. I am playing the one Pendulum Evolution. This is another brand new card in the form of a common. You can shuffle a Pendulum monster from your hand into the deck, add a Pendulum monster with 2500 attack and a different name from your deck to the hand. So that's how you're going to be able to technically be running 4 copies of the Supreme King Gate Magician. Very nice. It then has a secondary effect as well. It's during your main phase, if you special summoned a Pendulum monster from the face down extra deck, so one of your extra deck monsters basically, this turn you can immediately, after this effect resolves, Pendulum summon a monster or monsters. You can target one Supreme King ZARC you control. This turn it can attack all monsters your opponent controls once each. You can only use each effect once per turn, as if ZARC needed to attack all the opponent's monsters, so that's just overkill. And the last brand new card, this card should have been a super at least. Soul of the Supreme Celestial King. Tribute 1 spellcaster Pendulum monster with 2500 original attack. Hello! And if you do, fusion summon 1 Supreme King ZARC from your extra deck by banishing fusion materials mentioned on it from your hand, deck, extra deck, field and or graveyard. But negate its effects unless one of each of your Pendulum Dragon, XYZ Dragon, Synchro Dragon and Fusion Dragon monsters are currently banished. It does that for you anyway. Now, obviously, prior to getting this brand new card, we did have another trap card that kind of did the same job in the form of Soul of the Supreme King. This is actually getting a super in the next OTS. But this card's just is such an upgrade. And the last one is basically 6 slots that you can put whatever you want in. There could be more Pendulum monsters if you want to go full aggression. It could be 2-pot desires. I just went with imperms, ashes, and talents. But, you know, entirely down to personal preference on that one. Entirely up to you. So that's it for the main deck. Moving on to the extra deck. Of course, we are playing one Mac Daddy Supreme King ZARC. So, originally this was quite hard to summon, but now it's incredibly easy to do so. Now, the reason it's so good is if this card is special summoned, destroy all cards your opponent controls. It can't be destroyed by your opponent's card effects, nice, and your opponent cannot target this card with card effects. When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you get to special summon a Supreme King Dragon monster from your deck or extra deck. If this card in the monster zone is destroyed by battle or card effect, you get to place this card into the Pendulum zone. Very nice. Then we've got its basically pseudo upgrade in the form of Odd Eyes Arc Dragon. So the reason this is basically like a pseudo Supreme King is it requires 4 Dragon monsters, 1 Fusion, Synchro, XYZ, and Pendulum. It is also always treated as Supreme King ZARC. This face down card in the extra deck must first be either Fusion summoned or special summoned by tributing 1 level 12 Dark Supreme King ZARC. If this card is special summoned from the extra deck, you get to place 1 Pendulum monster from your deck into your Pendulum zone. If this card in the monster zone is destroyed, you can place it into your Pendulum zone. Now the best thing about these is both these are 1 and a 13. It would have been really cool is rather than tributing a ZARC is if you destroyed the ZARC, because then technically you could then place it into your scale, which would have been really, really funny. But the idea of the reason you'd go for the Odd Eyes Arcry is just for the pure fact that you get to set a scale or get an additional scale. You shouldn't need to do it, like your ZARC should do the job for you, but you know, you do what you do. And then the monsters we're going to be using as fodder for its basically fusion summon is I've gone with the alternate arts of these, but it's entirely up to you. Clear Wing Synchro Dragon, Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, Dark Rebellion XYZ Dragon. And that is of course why we also play the one Odd Eyes, wherever it may be, Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon. Like, it needs to be in the name in order to fulfill its effects, and I quite like those ratios. Speaking of the Odd Eyes engine, we are playing the one Odd Eyes Absolute, which will give you your Vortex as your defensive option. You could play the XYZs. I don't own them, the ones that came out in Maze, but they are a cool little aggressive upgrade if you wanted to. And then also playing the Supreme King Dragon Clearwing. If ZARC in your opponent's board wasn't enough, you get the ability that if it is Synchro Summoned, you get to destroy all face-up monsters your opponent controls. So you're basically going double board wipe, which is really kind of cool. Because I'm playing the Magician engine, I am playing the one Savage Dragon. And the reason Savage Dragon is so important is because we've got loads of Link 2s that we can utilise in order to basically have a double negate off the back of that. So we're playing 2 Beyond the Pendulum. You don't have to play 2, you can very easily play 1. It's just one of them ones that are for a follow-up turn if you need to, and it's not a once per turn. It gives you the ability to rock and roll. So for those of you that are familiar with Beyond the Pendulum, it's just had a nice reprint as well. If it is Link summoned in the extra monster zone, you get to pay 1200 life points, add a Pendulum monster from your deck to the hand. But for the rest of the turn, unless you Pendulum summon after this effect resolves, you cannot activate monster effects, and the effects of any cards in your Pendulum zones are negated. If 2 monsters with different original levels and Pendulum scales are summoned at the same time to the zones this card points to, you get to target 2 cards in the field and destroy them. Next up, I will go back to Link 2s, but just because you can see, like, technically an upgrade on your Beyond the Pendulum is Exceed the Pendulum, so this is the brand new super. 2 effect monsters, including the Pendulum monster. It gains 100 attack for each Pendulum monster card you control. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn. If this card is Link summoned, you can add 1 face-up Pendulum monster from your extra deck to the hand. During the main phase, quick effect, you get to special summon 1 Pendulum monster from your hand or graveyard in defense with a level between the Pendulum scales of the 2 cards in your Pendulum zones. Nice free extension. And then of course we've got the 1 IP, the 1 SP Little Knight, and Appaloosa. Now obviously I know SP Knight is quite expensive right now, so you don't have access to this. This can very easily be any Link monster you want. It could be the Metatron, which is Link free. You can also play the Sulphur Cord Link free, which is kind of cool because it means that monsters that it points to cannot have their effects negated, which means if you do summon ZARC with its effects negated because you were unable to banish cards or your opponent was spinning them back or anything like that, you then get the ability to still mean that its effects are going to be live, which is really kind of cool. You just need to have the Sulphur Cord on the board first because the rule of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is whatever comes first kind of takes precedence, which is why if you have Skill Drain up and then you summon down Masterpiece without getting rid of the Skill Drain, Masterpiece would still be negated. So very easy, very simple extra deck. Really do like this deck. I think it's kind of cool. It's very fun. It's nice to see Pendulums come back around a little bit. They definitely got the hard end of the stick when they flipped the rules of having to summon Link monsters to Link zones, but they maintained and said Pendulum has to go to Link zones, whereas everything else from the extra deck can go wherever the hell it wants. Anyway, that's it for the profile. I'm now going to reset the board and I'll show you that very cool 2-card combo. Shout out to Nerd Factor on YouTube. I'll put the link to his video below so you can see his profile and then see his combo and explanation behind it. But this is where I saw this 2-card combo and I was like, this is absolutely insane. So what you need is Dragon Shrine or access to Darkworld with an extender. I'm going to show you this combo with an extender so you can see that you can still maintain your normal summon and still make your plays. You could play stuff like Ready Fusion and Instant Fusion as well if you want to make sure you've got that extender, or of course Magician Souls, entirely up to you. But the idea is we're going to activate Dragon Shrine. We're going to send our Supreme King Dragon Darkworm from deck to graveyard. And because we control no monsters, we can summon it back. You then get to use this effect that gives you the ability to add you a Supreme King Gate from the deck to the hand, which will be the brand new Gate Magician. Scale up the Gate Magician, use this effect to destroy itself, putting it into the Pendulum scale, put it into the extra deck to put a Supreme King Gate 0 into your scales. You will then use your extender, whether it be Chronograph, whether it be just the normal summon, you name it. The idea is just to kind of get it to the board. Obviously, if you're able to maintain your normal summon, it means you can push through a little bit more interruptions from your opponent as well, which is the most important thing. So obviously, you're going to pop your Chronograph Sorcerer, putting it into the extra deck, and then being able to take Time Gazer from your deck or hand and place it into your Pendulum Zone or special summon it. You're then going to link your Darkworm and your Time Gazer together to finish off your scales to get you into Beyond the Pendulum. You then pay 1,200 life points in order to search out your Supreme King Dragon Lightworm. Notice if you open up any of these cards, you don't need to instantly go through Beyond the Pendulum. Like, you can actually use Beyond the Pendulum as a bait out because it's such an important part where your opponent's like, they've paid 1,200 life points. If I ash this, imperm this, or stop this, they're going to lose a turn. And you still have 3 more cards to play with. So they could be 3 more search cards, they could be 3 more consistency cards, or you can just open up the Supreme King Dark Lightworm. So we're going to scale the dragon, and then you're going to Pendulum Summon. Now, the ones you're going to want to Pendulum Summon, of course, are going to want to be your Supreme King, and then, of course, your Supreme King Gate. Now, you don't have to, like, if you have more in your hand, you can Pendulum Summon more if you want to. This is where your Harmonizing Magician comes into play, because, again, it'll still leave you with 2 cards in your hand, and you still have so much more to play with. The Supreme King Gate Magician will then trigger its effect to search out Soul of the Supreme Celestial King, which is obviously where the punch comes from behind this deck. Now, you do want to specifically leave these on the board because you're going to be able to get a lot more value from them. You definitely need this card kept on the board, and then this one's just on the board for a second board wipe after you already ZARC your opponent. So you pass your opponent. During your opponent's turn, you get to activate Soul of the Supreme Celestial King, tribute off your Supreme King Gate Magician, and this will then allow you to fusion summon a ZARC. In order to fusion summon the ZARC, you need to send a Synchro Dragon, XYZ Dragon, Fusion Dragon, and Pendulum Dragon from the deck, extra deck, and banish them. So very easily, boom, gone. There is no fodder in the graveyard for your opponent to bestial, which is really kind of cool. So now you've done this, you've got your ZARC on the board. ZARC is not negated because it says negate its effects unless you have at least one of each, a Pendulum Dragon, which you do, XYZ, Synchro, and Fusion Dragon, which of course we do, that are currently banished, which is exactly what we're going to do. ZARC will then board wipe. So now you've board wiped with ZARC, the next thing you need to do is you can hold back until your opponent special summons a monster. Keep in mind that if a monster or monsters is special summoned and you control ZARC, which is exactly what you do, you get the ability to special summon, as long as you control another pendulum monster, which again you do, you can special summon the Lightworm. Now keep in mind, let's say they special summon a Fenrir, right? And they put another monster on the board. The worst thing that's going to happen is you go, okay, cool, so they special summon another monster, you go, okay, Dragon 1 to summon. As it is their turn, they will be turn player priority. So you would go Chain Link 1 them. They will then make your target. They cannot target Zeus. They will probably attempt to try and target one of these. They will definitely read the Lightworm, and they might make a mistake by targeting these. The best thing that they can target is either Gate 0 or Beyond the Pendulum. No matter what they target, as you are Chain Link 2, you will resolve by adding back your Supreme King Gate Magician to go again the next turn, and then Synchro Summon these two here to go into your Supreme King Dragon Clearwing. Now, Supreme King is if this card is Synchro Summoned, you get to destroy all face-up monsters your opponent controls. So the best thing about that is, again, even if Fenrir was to target Beyond the Pendulum, keeping in mind this is already gone, or if they target Supreme King Gate. If they target Supreme King Gate, their entire board is getting absolutely nuked, and you've got a guaranteed of 65 on the board. Not to mention that once per turn, before damage calculation, if this card battles an opponent's monster, you can destroy that monster and then inflict damage. So it's just basically setting up everything you need. So you still have 3 more cards to play with. You've already added back the Supreme King Gate. And as long as you've got another card that can be sent, you can summon this down. But at the base minimum, you've got 65 there. You've got 77 on board. That's just so easy. And you've nuked them twice. You draw a card for turn. You still have the remaining 3 cards in your hand from the opening turn anyway. Like, one of these finishes off the door. Easy. Absolutely. And that's it. Like, really kind of cool there. I love the new additions to it. Yes, of course, it does fall foul to pretty much the same level of interruption as most decks. Draw and Lockbird, you've got to be a little bit careful of. The Biru you can play around if you get Harmonizing early enough. You could play the Jackal to set up that negate again as well before you get into the realms of Nibiru. You also have stuff like Magician's Souls to play through it. It's just absolutely insane. I really do enjoy it. I love the angle that this deck can now go and the different steps that it can take. Really fun, really powerful, and it can be built slightly cheap as well because you don't have to play SP Little Knight. Beyond the Pendulum's just had a reprint. This is an ultra rare in the current set, very cheap and very easy to get hold of, and you can go from there. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. If you do have any questions at all, by all means, please put in the comments down below. I will be more than happy to answer them for you. But for now, as absolutely always, stay safe and, of course, happy dueling.